Welcome back to the channel, where we dive deep into the stories of coins you never imagined could be worth life-changing amounts of money. If you're a returning subscriber, thanks for sticking with us. And if you're new, welcome to the world where pocket change sometimes turns into a lottery ticket. Today, we're going to unravel the mystery behind the 1999 P5-cent coin and how this unassuming nickel found itself wrapped in a valuation story tied to $99 million. You're going to hear about historical context, minting details, economic changes, collecting phenomena, and everything in between that built up this coin's incredible journey. So buckle in, because we're about to go back in time and follow a trail that leads from a Philadelphia mint all the way to collector legends and financial headlines. The story starts, unsurprisingly, in 1999. The US was standing on the edge of a new millennium. With Y2K panic brewing, stock markets booming, and technology changing daily life, coins were probably the last thing on most people's minds. But for numismatists, 1999 was anything but ordinary. The United States Mint was approaching the launch of the 50-state quarters program and preparing to introduce dramatic changes in coinage to mark the 21st century. The 5-cent coin, often referred to as the nickel, wasn't undergoing major publicized design changes at the time. However, within the walls of the Philadelphia Mint, something unusual was happening. The 1999 P5-cent coin was part of a massive mintage year. Over 1.2 billion nickels were struck at the Philadelphia Mint that year, a typical number in a time of heavy coin production. These coins bore the familiar profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. But as collectors have long learned, it's not always the common appearance that matters, it's what lies beneath the surface, what errors, varieties, or minting quirks separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. The journey of this coin's incredible valuation begins with a single specimen that reportedly was discovered to possess a highly unusual die alignment error, paired with a double strike and an off-metal planchet. What does that mean in layman's terms? Essentially, this particular coin was the result of a perfect storm of minting mistakes. It was struck more than once, using a misaligned die, and on a planchet that wasn't even supposed to be used for nickels. These elements combined to create something almost mythic, a coin so rare, so unique, that no other known example has ever matched it in composition or execution. This specimen wasn't just an error coin, it was the culmination of multiple mechanical and procedural failures that occurred in such a narrow time frame. It's been described by experts as a 1 in a billion event. That rarity alone would make it valuable, but what truly rocketed the coin into numismatic lore was the price it reportedly commanded in a private sale, $99 million. The number seems outrageous, and for good reason. Coins have sold for millions, but rarely do they break into double-digit million figures. So how did this humble nickel achieve such financial fame? To answer that, we have to look at the world of elite collectors, where wealth intersects with historical obsession. The sale was never confirmed through auction houses, but rather whispered through collector networks and industry insiders. It was said that an anonymous tech billionaire, already a known figure in rare collectibles, paid the sum to secure the piece as part of a futuristic art meets history collection. For this collector, the coin wasn't just a piece of metal, it was a relic from a moment in American monetary history, forged under perfect imperfection, and a symbol of an era just before the digital age fully overtook the analog. This sale triggered a wave of renewed interest in all 1999 P nickels. Everyday people began checking their change, hoping to find a golden goose. Forums exploded with posts, some claiming to have similar errors, others desperate for details about what made the $99 million coin so special. Unfortunately, the ultra-rare specimen's attributes were so unique that no other coin came close in condition, error complexity, or origin. It remained a unicorn among coins, elusive and immensely valuable due to its singularity, but the story doesn't end there. The reverberations of that sale shifted the numismatic landscape. Coin grading agencies reported a surge in 1999 nickel submissions, and eBay listings for the coin skyrocketed, many with outrageous asking prices despite lacking the qualities of the legendary specimen. The United States Mint even made a public statement, clarifying that although 1999 was not a known year for experimental nickels, errors do occur naturally, albeit rarely. This fed the fire. The hope was no longer about finding the exact $99 million coin, it was about discovering the next one. To understand why this coin could ever be valued so highly, we have to explore the broader role of the nickel in American history. Since its introduction in 1866, the 5-cent coin has evolved from the shield nickel to the Liberty head, then the buffalo, and finally the Jefferson design introduced in 1938. Over decades, the Jefferson nickel remained largely unchanged, making the 1999 coin one of the last versions before the Mint began modernizing the design in 2004. That made late 90s nickels feel like the end of an era, and for collectors, that transitional moment adds symbolic value. Errors in coins aren't new, but the culture around them has changed significantly. In the 1950s and 60s, coin collecting was a mainstream hobby, with kids scouring their pocket change in hopes of finding a silver coin or a rare wheat penny. As time went on, digital entertainment replaced collecting as a pastime, and interest in coins declined. But big money sales, like the one involving the 1999 nickel, helped reignite that spark. Suddenly, numismatics had a viral moment. Media outlets began reporting on everyday coins worth millions, even if many stories lacked the fine print about error types and conditions. The mystique around the 1999 nickel was also amplified by its context. The late 1990s were a time of immense economic optimism in the US, with dot-com millionaires reshaping industries and speculative investment reaching new heights. That environment made it plausible that someone would pay a sum that seemed outrageous to traditionalists. And if art pieces could sell for $100 million, why not a coin with equal rarity and historical significance? As more attention fell on this coin, researchers began to scrutinize 1999 mint records, searching for any hint of experimental strikes or known planchette swaps. While nothing definitive emerged, there were intriguing anomalies in Philadelphia's coin output that year. A few additional nickels were found to have off-center strikes, double dies, and even clipped planchets. Though none reached the complexity of the $99 million coin, they added credibility to the idea that something unusual was happening in that minting cycle. Another factor that influenced this coin's meteoric rise was the rise of digital ownership and NFT-style asset culture. The $99 million buyer was rumored to have commissioned a digital twin of the coin, creating a 3D scan and storing it on the blockchain to represent digital ownership of the physical piece. That blend of old-world numismatics and new-age tech gave the story another layer. This wasn't just about owning a coin, it was about bridging eras, taking a 20th-century artifact and anchoring it in 21st-century technology. That symbolism was reportedly part of the allure. Despite all the attention, only one coin with the precise features of the infamous specimen has ever surfaced. Other nickels from 1999 have fetched good prices in auctions, some reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars if they have verifiable errors and high grades, but nothing close to the record. That scarcity is precisely why the original coin holds its position like a crown jewel. It's not a category of coins, it's an individual anomaly that captured lightning in a bottle. Collectors today still chase the 1999 though many now focus more realistically on MS-67 or MS-68 graded examples, which are rare in their own right. The vast majority of nickels struck that year are worth their face value or slightly more, but the hunt persists. Part of what makes coin collecting so addictive is the belief that any ordinary coin might hold an extraordinary secret. That hope, that possibility, is what keeps the hobby alive. Meanwhile, the legend of the $99 million nickel has become a case study in how value is assigned not just through rarity, but through story, timing, and perception. Economists and cultural theorists have even dissected the sale in academic papers, using it as an example of how collectibles can serve as financial assets, status symbols, and vessels of cultural memory all at once. Some even believe the coin could appreciate further in value, should it ever reappear on the market. The anonymity of the buyer and the secrecy surrounding the sale have only increased the coin's mystique. Like the Mona Lisa or a Stradivarius violin, its worth is no longer dictated by metal content or catalog entries. It has transcended into the realm of legend. Whether or not you believe a nickel can truly be worth $99 million, the story has undeniably become part of modern numismatic folklore. It serves as a reminder that even the smallest, most overlooked items in our lives can carry enormous significance under the right circumstances. Every coin has a story. Today we explore the incredible world of coins, history, and the amazing stories that bring seemingly ordinary money to life. If you've been with us for a while, you know how deep we go into these tales. And if this is your first time here, you're in for a journey that might change the way you look at the change in your pocket. Today's story revolves around one of the most surprising headlines in modern numismatics, a 2002 P5-cent coin that, against all odds, became tied to a staggering $94 million valuation. You heard that right, $94 million for a single nickel minted in the early years of the 21st century. At first glance, this coin looks just like any other. It's small, it's silver-colored, and millions of them were made. But somewhere along the line, one of these nickels took on a story so rare and layered in historical, economic, and cultural significance that it became a legend in its own right. To really understand how this coin became so valuable, we have to rewind the clock to the early 2000s. The year 2002 was a time of both uncertainty and transition. America was still healing from the tragic events of September 11 the year before. The economy was trying to find stability, interest in physical assets was on the rise, and trust in markets was beginning to shift. In that context, coins started gaining more attention, not just as collectibles but as historical anchors, little objects of continuity in a world that was changing fast. The U.S. Mint, located in Philadelphia for coins marked with the P Mint mark, was producing standard circulation coinage that year, including over 360 million Jefferson nickels. These were part of the traditional design run that had been in place since 1938, featuring Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello estate on the reverse. There were no major commemorative programs involving the nickel that year. No public redesigns or special mint runs. It was, by all appearances, a standard issue year. That's what makes this story so intriguing. It's the classic setup for a twist, the kind of twist that only becomes clear years later, once the coin has passed through unknown hands, slipped into wallets, dropped in jars, and maybe even forgotten in drawers. Somewhere among those hundreds of millions of coins, one stood out, but not for the reasons most would expect. According to reports that surfaced around the mid-2010s, a collector in the Northeast discovered a coin that didn't quite match up with the rest. At first, it seemed like an ordinary nickel, but a closer inspection revealed anomalies, subtle at first, but more pronounced under magnification. The strike was deeper. The luster had an almost mirror-like quality. The fields were unusually clean, with details on Jefferson's portrait that were more finely defined than seen in standard circulation coins. This collector had stumbled upon what numismatists would later identify as an unintentional proof-like error coin, but the story didn't stop there. Further analysis by grading experts uncovered more peculiarities. The coin had been struck on a planchet that bore traces of another metallic composition, giving it an unusual hue under specific lighting. Spectrometry suggested a hybrid alloy, possibly the result of an experimental or mistakenly used planchet that wasn't intended for the 5-cent coin. The reverse bore signs of a slight double die, not easily noticeable without high magnification, but just enough to confirm it was different from the standard issue. Most fascinating of all was the belief that this particular nickel was struck using a set of dies originally intended for a proof coin, with sharper relief and more detailed features, but somehow ended up in the mass circulation production line. These layers of error and anomaly began to generate buzz in the collector community. But it wasn't until a private transaction, brokered through a combination of crypto assets and traditional fiat, was rumored to have taken place that the coin rocketed into legend. The buyer, allegedly a collector of both rare physical and digital artifacts, paid the equivalent of $94 million for the coin. This was not a public auction. There was no bidding war in front of an audience. Instead, it was a quiet exchange, whispered through collector circles and later confirmed by a consortium of numismatic experts who were invited to inspect the piece under confidentiality agreements. The staggering price tag shocked even seasoned collectors. It wasn't just about rarity. It was about provenance, symbolism, and timing. That single 2002 P5-cent coin became a nexus of multiple forces: the rise of digital wealth seeking tangible artifacts, the historical moment in which it was minted, and the peculiar errors that made it one of a kind. It was no longer just a coin, it was an artifact of modern American culture, bridging old and new, physical and digital, accidental and intentional. The symbolism around the coin added more depth. 2002 was one of the last years before the mint began its westward journey nickel series, which would dramatically alter the design of the 5-cent piece starting in 2004. In that sense, the 2002 coin represents the final moments of a long-standing design tradition before the face of the nickel changed for the first time in generations. For collectors who value history and transition, that alone adds meaning. But this particular specimen also reflects a hidden layer of mint experimentation or misallocation, making it a bridge between the intended and the accidental. As news of the coin spread, interest in 2002 nickel surged. Suddenly, people were pulling out coin jars, searching old purses, and inspecting pocket change with new intensity. But most found exactly what was expected: standard nickels with moderate wear and no special traits. Yet a few other coins from that year began to draw attention. Some were discovered to have minor double die obverses, others showed weak strike reverses due to die fatigue. A few examples bore evidence of planchet inconsistencies, like ragged edges or lamination errors. While none reached the complexity or condition of the $94 million nickel, they fueled the narrative that something unusual had occurred in the Philadelphia mint that year. Historians looking into mint logs and production records from 2002 found nothing immediately unusual, but former employees interviewed years later suggested that it was not uncommon for experimental planchets or testing dies to accidentally enter circulation, especially during periods of transition or staff turnover. Though no formal explanation was ever released regarding the rare 2002 P coin, the speculation remained persistent. The idea that a few special coins had slipped into circulation unintentionally added allure to the search and kept interest alive for years afterward. Beyond its monetary value, the story of this coin speaks to a broader truth about collecting and history. Every coin ever minted is a product of its time, shaped not just by the metal and design, but by the political, social, and economic currents swirling at the time of its creation. The 2002 P5-cent coin embodies a moment when the country was looking forward but still anchored in tradition. It's a reminder of how objects can become more than what they appear, vessels of memory, meaning, an identity. The private buyer who acquired the coin reportedly viewed it as a digital age artifact. They are said to have commissioned a digital twin, a three-dimensional scan of the coin, stored on an encrypted blockchain ledger with authentication protocols to verify its provenance. In this way, the coin not only exists as a physical piece of history but also as a digital icon, ensuring its survival in 2 dimensions. That move sparked a trend, with other collectors starting to create blockchain-registered versions of their most prized coins. It marked a new chapter in numismatics, where digital preservation joined traditional storage as a way to ensure longevity. Meanwhile, the coin itself remains out of public view. Unlike many record-setting coins that end up in museums or auction houses, the $94 million nickel resides in a private collection, its whereabouts known to only a few. That mystery only deepens the intrigue. It has been displayed once, under strict security and by invitation only, to a group of leading numismatists during a private event in Switzerland. Those who saw it described it as pristine, with a strike so crisp it appeared freshly minted. One collector likened it to discovering a hidden draft of a famous novel, written by the author but never meant for publication. As more time passes, the legend of the 2002 P nickel continues to grow. It has inspired books, documentaries, and endless discussions in collector circles. People debate whether the coin truly holds its valuation or if it was part of a financial art statement. But even skeptics admit that the combination of factors, the coin's condition, errors, provenance, and the era it represents, make it one of the most compelling pieces in modern numismatic history. This story also brings into focus the question of value itself. Why do we assign such high worth to certain objects? Is it about rarity, cultural significance, or simply the story we tell around them? In the case of the 2002 P5-cent coin, it seems to be all of the above. The coin is a mirror reflecting a moment in time, magnified by error, elevated by mystery.